Hello. I got one question for you. Who shot first?
Han Solo.
Ro?
Han Solo, of course.
Well, my answer to that is one of them missed.
There you go.
Oh,
I,
wow.
I gotta say, Greedo was a very, very bad shot.
Yeah.
I know.
I've seen those big bug eyes of his.
Regardless of which version you watched, yeah, bad shot.
I mean, he's right in front of you, dude.
Well, in one of the versions, Jabba the Hutt ate a lot of food and grew quite well.
Yes, pretty much. So, welcome everybody to our show. We are really excited because it was brought to my attention that we are neglecting Star Wars.
I mean, what can you do? We're talking about science fiction, not fantasy. Oops.
Ooh. Well, he said it. He said it. You can go after hate mail sent to Captain Chaos.
To quote Rose, spoken like a true Trekkie.
Publicity.
Huh?
There's
To
no
quote
such
Rose,
thing.
spoken like a true Trekkie.
Yeah, there's no such a thing as bad publicity, man. Bring it on.
So we are making an attempt to fix that because Star Wars has always been one of my favorites.
And Robert is a good doer, so he has to. He won't be able to sleep if he doesn't.
Yeah. So we're going to fix this because there's going to be a couple of episodes of Star Wars coming on our feed. So just stay tuned. This is going to be kind of like, this is actually the second one we have done. Because the first one we did, it was Kenobi.
Well, we did Kenobi.
Oh, we did
a couple of ones.
The Mandalorian?
The Mandalorian. And we did an episode on Star Wars too, on the animated series, remember?
Oh, I gotta remember. Oh
the one that the troopers were being trained.
No, but that was him. We talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about that in the Outer Remnant section.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm really excited because in order to rectify this really horrible mistake on our part, we have to bring
He's almost convincing that he feels sorry about
it. So we have to bring one of the best Star Wars podcasts that I have on my list. And we have right now as a guest is Ro from Scarif podcast. Hello, Ro. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you. And
I was wondering what that was.
That's for him. So, Ro, can you tell our audience, in case they have not heard of you, about your podcast and where they can find it?
Absolutely. So, as the saying goes, you can find the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast wherever you download your other favorite podcasts. We're available everywhere. And, we started back in 2019. I am based out of Chicago, and back in 2019, we had Star Wars Celebration here in the big city, and it was very exciting. I got to go and cover it for work, but also went to go do some interviews of fans, and with that material, my podcast partner and I decided, you know what, let's do a Star Wars podcast. We stayed Star Wars for a while, for about 2 years, a year and a half, but then we realized, we are big nerds, and our geek card spans across all the geekosphere. So besides Star Wars, we also like all sorts of other movies, sci-fi, fantasy. We love comic books and Marvel and DC and everything. The other Star franchise, Star Trek, we're big. We love all the geek stuff, and we talk about what all the cool kids are talking about.
Awesome. If you guys have not downloaded, I recommend you pause us right now, go download it, listen to Scarif, and then come back to us. We'll wait. I promise. I'll be here.
Yep.
Wouldn't we?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Chaos will be waiting for you here.
We'll be sipping on blue milk while we wait.
There you go.
Awesome. So, should we move on to the first one?
Yeah. Might as well.
Divide science fiction remnant.
And on this segment, you know the drill. We ask you to send us your comment on how do you define us to someone that loves well, in this case, Star Wars, but sci-fi, and have not heard our show. You can tweet at us or you can call our hotline is 1-305-563-6334. That's 305-563-6334.
He said it twice.
There you go.
This is not like insurance commercials.
Yeah, I wish I can do it like that. But yes, tweet at us, send us an email, call on the hotline. If you call the hotline, we're going to put you on the next episode.
If you don't want us to do that, let us know. We
yeah,
don't. But.
yeah, we're very So basically, what we usually take whatever we receive and we just read it online on the air. And let me ask, Gio, do you remember what is first thing that came to your mind? What is so far the best description that you remember that you like?
The one that I like the most is the one that says about feeling like that conversation you have when you go into the Comic-Con with your
We're
friends.
gonna have to fix that.
Yeah, I mean, I need to go to a Comic-Con first.
There's a couple here, so
I've never gone to a Comic-Con, guys. I'm a Comic-Con virgin.
There's a couple coming up.
Actually, I haven't gone to any kind of convention.
Yeah, there's a couple there too in here. So
Pixar didn't happen, guys.
Huh?
Pixar didn't happen.
What didn't happen?
Pixar didn't happen.
I
want to see pictures. That's what that means.
Oh, pictures or
Jesus.
it didn't happen. I'm like, what's Pixar?
Yes.
Pixar or it didn't happen.
There's a couple here. I'm trying to take him, but he's in Miami. I'm over here, so yeah, we're gonna.
Sorry, I'm speaking Australian. I'll have to fix that.
Conventions are awesome, especially if you like, whatever it is that you like. But being amongst people that are fans of the same thing you are, it really gets under your skin. It's a lot of fun to kind of coexist with a large group of people, cosplayers, comic book fans. It's really a lot of fun. I think the last one, there was one in Florida just a couple of weeks ago, the St. Petersburg Comic-Con, which is the second annual. One of my friends and I went down there last year to cover it. And again, it's just a lot of fun, just hanging out with similar minded science fiction and fantasy fans, and it's really cool. You should change that for sure.
And I mean, confirm that all of you confirm that to me, because all I can do is speculate and think what it could be, but it feels to me that it's like you are in a place that you're with friends, even when you don't know anybody, you're with friends. That's what it feels like. Like it gives you a sense of belonging when you are in a Comic-Con, because everybody or somebody or some groups are gonna like exactly the same that you do, and even more than you do.
Yeah.
You guys don't know this, but I've actually helped run a convention stall.
So nice.
I've been there. For the company that Doc Joe and I write for, Storyweaver Games, we ran a stall at CanCon a couple of years back, and we had a photo booth with all these costumes and everything in there to get people in, and they're all coming in their cosplays and getting photos taken. And also, if they didn't have a cosplay, they get dressed up and get their photos taken.
Nice, that's cool.
Awesome.
It was green screen, so we could put any sort of background on it that they wanted,
Nice.
including Star Wars-ish ones. Can't be actual Star Wars ones because it's copyrighted. But anyway,
I'm gonna say what I think my favorite is, and I have a feeling, and Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it might be the same one as you. Top Gear.
that was a good
we are
one.
the Top Gear for sci-fi.
I like the Three Amigos ones.
The Three Amigos. I forgot about that one.
Taco mate.
Awesome.
Remember, I'm Dusty Bottoms.
Okay, so don't know if Ro has one, but we can. If not, we can move on to the next.
Let us know, Rogelio.
Did I mention that I'm properly dressed?
Oh, there you go.
Ooh,
Nice.
awesome. That is a nice shirt. For
Very
all of
nice.
you guys who are listening to our podcast, hurry up and a month from now, you'll go ahead and go to YouTube and watch the video because Ray just showed us this really cool shirt.
Yeah, it says "Come together to the Republic." Ding ding ding.
And he's
Join-
wearing
join
no
the Empire,
pants.
we have-
He's wearing no pants.
Wasn't the T-shirt "Join the Empire"? We have cookies.
Yes, chocolate chip. I heard it's chocolate chip. The Empire is giving.
Yeah, but because this Empire is dark chocolate, no sugar. It's
Okay.
like it looks good, but when you try it, it's like sour. Like it doesn't taste like anything.
Awesome.
Responsibly sourced from Scarif.
There you go.
Yes.
With macadamia nuts
There you go.
from Scarif.
Do they have those there? Probably, right?
They did, but I
Probably.
think the Star Destroyer fell on the plantation, and that was into it.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's all gone. Maybe I don't know. Awesome. So, Ro, if you don't have anything, we can move on to the next segment. Define.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if I might have actually called the hotline one time, but it is really just like hanging out with friends and talking, talking movies, talking sci-fi stuff. It's cool. Yeah, that's
It's
the best.
really
That's
cool.
the best kind of hangout.
Oh yeah. It's and, Rio, you probably remember this. I am really glad that we have kept, even on season 2, the same idea. And remember when I told you when we started the podcast in season 1, that my idea was, those conversations that we had, you and me sitting down on the couch watching movies,
Making a 2 hours movie 5-6 hours.
Yeah, pretty much. Awesome.
Value adding.
There you go. Yeah, well, it's obvious because remember that if you guys have not listened to that one, we have an episode on Broga, which is what was it, 15-minute
15-minute.
short sci-fi film from Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked for how long?
2 hours and a half, 3 hours.
So yes,
Wow.
Well, we did
Le
the very
Voyage en la
first
Lune.
science fiction movie. Remember?
Don't go further. Le Voyage en la Lune.
Oh yes,
The
15
15-minute
movie.
long, journey
Silent
to the
movie.
moon.
yes,
And that was 2.5, 3 hours.
yeah,
And
pretty
it
much.
was silent movie.
It's silent movie. Awesome. So let's go into the next segment. We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is SciFi.
And on this segment, you know the drill. This is Sci-Fi is a hashtag we have created to unite the fandom of every sci-fi property there is. So if you like Star Wars, if you like Star Trek, if you like Galactica, if you like Barbarella, Galaxina, use the hashtag to share your love. Basically, that's what we our end goal is with the hashtag. So and I'm really happy where it's at right now because there has been many times where I personally have finished with something that I might be watching, and I'm kind of like on a discovery mode and going through there and seeing what other people has shared has actually gotten me to watch other stuff that I normally would not have watched. Also, there's science articles that I post in there, something that things that I read that might be interesting. And so the whole idea is if you are a sci-fi fan, you want to follow that and share your love. If you are a sci-fi creator, you want to follow that and share your love. And then we can all join together and talk about what we love the most, which is sci-fi. We're all sci-fi lovers here, and that is the best way that you can show some love to the IP that is in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
So, Gio, have you had any experience with a This is Sci-Fi lately?
Yeah, I mean, like I said in previous episodes, like whenever I feel like finding just a group of folks where we're gonna discuss something that I enjoy in a specific properties. Like if I'm looking sometimes like there's some certain movies that we call the comfort TV, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we have to go back to. And whenever I want to find something more like technical about it, I just put that hashtag plus this is sci-fi. And usually I find always a good conversation going on where we start having discussions. Sometimes we get very heated,
Yeah.
but I mean, I do enjoy those sometimes too. I like to be like kind of an instigator on them. But I mean, it's fun because you get to also see new points of view on these certain topics, and I mean, I always keep myself going back to it. I think that that's a perfect gateway for you to find yourself with other folks that share the same common likes.
And, I have to admit, it's the first time that I have seen a very positive conversation between Star Wars and Star Trek fans.
Yeah, it's what I say. The point is not to see what we have in differences. Is to watch and look for our commonalities. That's what's
Exactly.
gonna get us far in ahead.
Ray, I don't know if you have what have been your experience this week on the hashtag. If you can
Well,
bring
I
something up.
realize it's not May, May the 4th being Star Wars season, but there's a lot of Star Wars kicking around at the moment. I'm looking at it may be a troll poster, but it says, "Is Jar Jar the best character?"
Misha wants to know that.
There's also lots of stuff from Rose podcast here talking Andor.
Oh yes,
Yes.
and don't kill
We,
me. Don't kill me. I have
haven't
not watched it
Me neither,
yet,
me neither.
but I'm gonna watch it. It's not because I don't want to watch it.
Yeah.
It's all that I hear from it is
you of all people,
amazing.
you of all people has such a big ass list to watch shit that.
Yes. Yes.
Get on
Well,
track.
I would
Get
have
on track,
watched
man.
Andor, but I had to watch this other thing called A New Hope for about the 50th time.
Only 50?
Only 50.
Oh, man.
Oh,
You shouldn't have talked.
But
I
you
love
see,
sound.
I've actually listened to it to the audio recording. Well, it was on vinyl. This is how long ago it was. It was on vinyl. It's the story of Star Wars on vinyl. I've listened to that about 10,000 times.
That's
So
got Ray with his underground bootleg stuff.
no, it wasn't. It was not bootleg. It was official.
He's new blood. He thinks that
He wouldn't know.
vinyl is something
He
out
doesn't
of
know. Yeah, he doesn't
sci-fi.
know what vinyl is.
What is that? Before TVs were invented, I know it's a vinyl, and now they're trending. People have the vinyls, but they don't even listen to them. Just having it to flash them around in the living room. They still put the MP3 on Spotify.
Awesome. So this is what I'm talking about. This is what I love to get involved with in this type of conversation. And if I can get more and more, because I'm sure there's a lot more people that share the love that I have for this, just like we do here for
Mhm.
sci-fi. And I love that engagement and the conversation that happens and this is sci-fi. Ray, do you have a personal something that comes to mind that had your experience on this is sci-fi hashtag?
Well, I usually just sort of do a quick squeeze across it to make sure that I'm following the trend of what's happening there at the moment. But yeah, like I said, it seems like it's Star Wars season right at the moment, so we're fitting in quite nicely.
And Ro, anything that comes to mind from the hashtag?
No, the use of hashtags is always great. To engage in conversation, and I think that's one of the things that I think most of us that are content creators really are doing right, especially on Twitter and social media, because it's really cool. Like you were saying, you guys were saying that to be able to get other people's points of view on the stuff that we all love. I mean, look at us now. We're talking about a movie that came out in 1977, and there are
Yes.
still ideas and still feelings about that movie that may not be, what everybody feels about. But we're sitting here talking about it, decades later.
Yes.
But I think that's one of the biggest reasons I love being on social media, especially as a content creator, that we are able to, coin a hashtag or tag people and engage them in conversation, which is really great. And I think we've demonstrated through the This Is Sci-Fi hashtag. I know I've used it a couple of times to generate some conversation about some other stuff that we talk about, and it's been great, and I love it. Looking forward to this year and new conversations and new relationships, and that's one of the biggest reasons that I started the group that I'm involved with the Red 5 network. It's just a bunch of nerds talking about all the stuff that they love. But as far as the hashtag, yeah, absolutely, I use it when I can, and we get some really great conversations going back and forth.
Awesome. Okay, so that's actually just by the way, if you have not heard of the Red 5 network, I encourage you to go look it up, and there's a great selection of podcasts there. So I strongly recommend it. Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah.
Shout out.
And for this segment, for starters, want to remind everybody that we're part of the Blind Knowledge Network, and I will suggest you right now to stop and go and check them at blindknowledge.com. They have a great variety of content creators, podcasts, gaming, review shows, all sorts. So go and check them. I'm sure that you're gonna find something that you like in them. We're glad to be part of them. The first mention that I want to do, I love these guys, is the Sci-Fi Wise Guy. I actually have my nudge on my my Twitch channel for them. So every time that they come up,
Yes.
I'm just watching them, and it's fun always like see them. They have like a love and hate relationship. So they're always like in a pool in a conversation.
Oh, I love it.
It's just
I
fun.
love that that interaction where I hate it, no, I love it. And
Yeah.
yes.
Next but not least, the Manic Pixie Weirdo, one of our biggest supporter, and we always love having conversations with her.
Abigail.
Kudos.
And,
Yeah, we love
and I
Abigail too.
mean, go and check them out. Go and check Manic Pixie Weirdo. You can find the notes there handle, but it's MP Weirdo Podcast. And the Sci-Fi Wise Guy, just like that, reads Sci-Fi Wise Guys in the Twitter handle. Last but not least, also Sleepy Captain Kiyoshi, always being a supporter in our audience. We love always having conversation in the Discord channel with her.
Yeah, if you are in our Discord, she is our new moderator. So
Yeah. And how you feeling better?
She's
I know
been
that you're gonna
given
give
the
me a point for
power.
that.
Be
Kiss.
aware.
You give me a point for that kiss, but I'll take it. And also, this is a special mention. We don't have her Twitter, but Kat from Discord.
Hey, Gio, isn't Sleepy Captain Kiyoshi like the leader of your fan club?
No, because she's anything but my fan.
If you guys join our Discord, you can enjoy this back and forth between Sleepy Captain Kiyoshi and Captain Chaos here.
Every time that I mention anything that has related to affection to show towards her, she gives me a new way that I could be heard and taken to the ER.
So yeah, you guys, if you join us, you're gonna enjoy that interaction.
And I will call it out for this segment.
Awesome. So the next segment is
The Outer Remnant.
And where have we been before? Well, you were kind of briefly talking about it at the beginning of the show. We were talking about Clone Wars.
Yeah, but we're talking about Clone Wars. The
Across the Stars podcast.
Yes, that's true.
So it was, that we recorded 2 episodes, but that in both were fun. But if I had to choose one of the 2 to be completely chaotic, thanks to Captain Chaos here, he brings the chaos down. Is that what was that episode? Is the one that we're talking about Jar Jar.
Oh, the one that Jar Jar Binks like helped them escape. I mean, that was just too full of shit, man.
So I invite everybody to go download both of the episodes and reach out to us and let us know what you think. I'm sure you're going to enjoy their content. Especially if you love Star Wars like we do. So go ahead and download it and let us know what you think. And Ray, I wonder, where have you been?
You wonder, do you?
Yeah, I wonder. You know, I always, it's a mystery to me.
I'm sure it is. It's another inside joke, bro. I'm actually the one of the two hosts of the Alita Army Radio Chaos live stream that happens every Saturday afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern US time. So that's what he's going on about, because you probably didn't realize that. But yeah, so this week I was the host again. No big surprise there. And Angelus was on board as well, though, but I was hosting. And it was an art stream, an Alita art stream. So the first one for 2023. And we actually had a new Alita artist on. His tag on Twitter is Studio Fezilla, Fezilla. His real name is Luke, and he's an art teacher in Melbourne, Australia. And he had some pretty fantastic Alita artworks, and he's a very big fan of the franchise, and he actually sets as one of his accessible tasks for his students, for his birthday, they all have to draw him an Alita. So he was showing us all his students' work.
Nice.
So yeah, it was all sorts of different styles, and it was fantastic. We had a great time on that stream. So if you like fantastic fan art of sci-fi properties, and you happen to like the Gumu or Alita Battle Angel IP, then check that one out, because it was really good.
Awesome. And Ray, I don't Ro, I don't know if you want to plug a particular show that you have been on that is not your own.
I haven't been on. Nobody's asked me to be a guest in a long
We
time.
did.
We're gonna fix that. We have a lot of Star Wars we got to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm your man.
Awesome. Okay, so I just got to ask this question. Are we ready to speak Bocce? Are we?
I think so.
Are you?
Bachi?
Yeah, Bocce.
The Jawas?
Wait, bocce or bitchy?
Well, you know,
There's a
Captain
difference.
Chaos.
No,
Yeah.
no. Maybe Ray speaks Bichi.
Oh God!
I'm the least bitchy person you know. Come on.
I think the audience know this by now. So. So if you don't already know, because maybe you just clicked on this episode and didn't want to read the title, which it's okay. We're talking about 1977 Star Wars 4: A New Hope.
Certainly not a spoiler.
Yes. So we can go to town with this one.
And actually, it wasn't called A New Hope in 1977.
No, it was not.
So
yes,
I don't
Just
know
episode 4?
Not
it
even.
was just
No.
the Star Wars.
Star Wars. That's it.
It was the Star Wars
Yeah.
original. They took the off, and then they added 4: A New Hope when they introduced Empire.
The Star Wars.
Like the Facebook, but different.
Awesome.
Giancarlo.
Yeah, the
Geo.
Captain Chaos.
The Geo.
Yeah.
We still got to do a shirt. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, you got to draw something. We got to put it on a shirt.
What do you guys want me to draw?
Oh, Captain Chaos.
Yeah, but
Creating chaos.
what I'm gonna do, like a little face of like a chibi version of me, like a big bob head.
Yeah, that would work. We could work on that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the audience can jump in and reach out to us and let us know.
Give me ideas, man.
Ideas.
I'll make it.
We'll make it a shirt.
If not, it's gonna be something lewd.
So, Ray, you have the plot?
I have the plot, but clearly the person who wrote this on Wikipedia was a huge fan. The plot is like 6 paragraphs long,
Oh
so
my God.
like it's a pretty Be prepared for a long plot. Okay, you ready?
Grab that, take it to the translator, and translate it back and forth from English to Chinese like 4 times. Then read.
I tried that a few times. Google isn't as bad as it used to be. Honestly.
Yeah, I know I say it in every episode, but I'm really gonna make it my mission. I gotta replicate that somehow.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't
Ray,
know how they did it. It was fantastic.
can we get a
Anyway,
summary of the plot somehow?
so you're ready? You're ready for this big plot? Okay. Luke Skywalker joins forces with the Jedi Knight, a cocky pilot, a Wookiee, and 2 droids to save the galaxy from the Empire's world-destroying battle station, while also attempting to rescue Princess Leia from the mysterious Darth Vader. There you go. Done.
Oh wow!
I love the fact that you that was one whole sentence.
It took me by surprise.
Talk to me actually, like,
It took me by surprise.
that's so summarized. If somebody will be captured by Star Wars, they will never try it by hearing that.
Oh wow!
Needs a new hook.
Like a New Hope, a new hook.
Yeah. Okay, I do have that, but
Would
you usually overuse it, so I'm trying not to.
Okay. I was gonna ask, but I didn't.
Okay, so I would have to start by saying this, and you probably hear me in every episode that we talked about the story, the history of sci-fi, and we come to this point in history. This is the changing point in history where sci-fi changed forever. I always say that I miss the sci-fi of old. And when I say that, in order for you to grasp what I'm talking about, you have to kind of watch the movie Logan's Run as an example.
Yeah.
Soylent Green. All those movies, Westworld. And you get an
2001: Space
idea.
Odyssey.
Space Odyssey is another example. That is the sci-fi that I'm talking about. Now, when I say this, you probably say, okay, you don't like the new sci-fi. I do the new sci-fi. I miss the old sci-fi. But I know there's some new sci-fi movies that are trying to recreate that.
Yep.
You can still find them, but it was just kind of cool for me to experience that with all its without the all the CGI, the practical effects. But Star Wars, why we have new sci-fi today. And after the success of this movie, every studio wanted to cash in on the success, and then all the stories kind of changed. I do want to say, and you guys, let me know what you guys think of what I'm actually saying. I'm going to stop talking so you guys can talk in just a minute. I love the new sci-fi, and it's just getting better with every iteration. It just gets better and better. Although I miss the old sci-fi, I'm not saying I hate the new sci-fi.
Of course, totally get that.
But I just want to point out the fact that Star Wars is the reason why, in my opinion, we have new sci-fi. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I mean, it's obvious that there are certain properties that became a milestone on filmmaking and genres in general, and Star Wars is one of those for science fiction and for fantasy, and basically it created a big following just for the property itself. Just like the few that you mentioned before, science fiction known elements, Space Odyssey, Logan's Run. These are things that anybody that likes something that is not just brainless action or clean, they have seen it once or twice, even if they haven't seen all of it. They have seen some of it. All so it's something that it reaches all kind of public, and it kind of unites communities if you think of it.
Yes,
and redefine a whole genre on itself. And Star Wars is one of those things. I think that it it's like the beauty of it is like how large and extensive is the universe and the reality they create within it, that it rubs you away and like it makes you wish that it was true. You
Yes.
know, that's how good something can be.
Any comments you might have on what I?
I had a quick question. What when you say you miss the old sci-fi, you don't exactly hate the new sci-fi, but I was going to ask you, what do you consider like the new sci-fi? Where's your line of forward?
Demarcation.
Yeah.
For me, and I'm sure the line is going to move way up for other people that might be listening, but for me, the line is Star Wars. Star Wars marks the age of new sci-fi. And some of you guys, especially this one, 1977 marks the new sci-fi. Some of you, especially people that might be really interested in, say, for example, Strange New Worlds, which is another milestone, in my opinion, would say, hold on a second, what are you talking about? You know, that's old sci-fi.
Now, I have a question. Where do you leave Galactica in Star Trek, which
Eh,
are older
That's another
than Star
example.
Wars?
That's another example. If you look, for example, at Galactica, I love the 1978 Galactica, right?
Yeah.
Now, you look at when they decided to recreate Galactica, and where did these people look for? They did not look at the old,
True.
old sci-fi, because everybody looked at Star Wars 1977. Okay, we got to replicate that. So that's why the 2000s Galactica is completely different.
Yeah.
And reinvented to the era, because obviously 1977 is a complete different era. So
Mhm.
you still see major differences between 1977 Star Wars and 2000 Galactica. But if you take that aside for a minute and you compare the 1978 Galactica to the 2000 Galactica, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, and I mean, just to clarify to Raw what he was asking, because I think I got what you meant. Like, it's not that movies or properties are being done poorly,
No.
but storytelling is not the same. You can see that storytelling has evolved, and it's not like before. The campiness of a movie is not as much as it was before, neither.
Yes.
And all those elements that gives you that home feeling, that wholesome feeling when you're watching it, are kind of like fading away with the evolution of filmmaking to what it's becoming now, probably.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, and don't get me wrong, you probably, if you listeners out there hear me, I'm not knocking, because obviously if I didn't love new sci-fi, I would not love sci-fi as much as I do now, and I wouldn't have a podcast. I love new sci-fi. Don't get me wrong; it's more realistic. It's the storytelling has evolved. An example that I can give you is Strange New Worlds. That's an amazing TV
Yeah.
show. Another one that I personally have not heard, and believe me, I will rectify that. I have not watched yet. Is Andor, but I have read and listened to podcasts, and all I have heard about the show is just amazing things on how that story is written, how it was implemented, how it was filmed. So those are examples of new sci-fi that are amazing, and there's a nostalgic feeling for me when it comes to all sci-fi. And I think one example of a show that has tried to keep that old sci-fi feeling yet embracing the new sci-fi would be something like Doctor Who.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. George Lucas has said in the past that a movie or a sci-fi movie, or I guess any movie with special effects and stuff like that, um it's a sci-fi movie without a good story and great special effects is really not that interesting. And you gave a really great example. I prefer the old Battlestar Galactica more so than the new Battlestar Galactica, because there's a couple of reasons. They changed like too much from the story, the new from the old, but there's certain aspects of, and you mentioned the word nostalgia, for sure, that plays into my liking of the old Battlestar Galactica. I love the practical effects that were done. And obviously, there's a lot of Star Wars DNA in the 1978 Battlestar Galactica behind the
Yes.
scenes. It's almost like it's almost like the crew from ILM, when they were on vacation, they went to go work on Battlestar Galactica, and I think that's exactly one of the biggest reasons that there are a lot of similarities. Even Ralph McQuarrie, the pre-visualizing, the artist that did all the paintings for the promotion of the original Star Wars, worked on Battlestar Galactica. So a lot of the stuff looks very similar. It's got that used look that Lucas is known for. So it is interesting. As far as liking new sci-fi, um, George Lucas really tapped into a global feeling of storytelling. The stories are not very complex. The characters are characters that we know from our history and our fables and our tales of storytelling. You have certain archetypes that have survived from very early on, fathers and sons, bad guys, heroes and wizards. And I think that aspect of the characters in Star Wars really touched a lot of people in such a way that it touched them, deeply, and it's familiar to them, even though Star Wars was new back in the 70s, but it was still familiar. And I think that's one of the reasons that that people still talk about it 40 plus years later,
Yes.
because it is ingrained in our DNA, the ability to to tell these stories in a way that George Lucas really mastered, at the time. And he always says that he wanted to create new fables for young people. The United States was going through some major social upheavals. We had the civil rights movement. We had wars in Southeast Asia, and George wanted to reintroduce hope into society. And I think a lot of people remember that, and the movie is remembered and loved by a lot of people for many reasons, but those being one of many, I guess.
Yes. Yes. Um,
Is it my
I
turn yet?
go ahead. I'm sorry. See what happens? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I want to chime in on this one, but I was waiting for everybody else to have a go because Star Wars to me is that sort of shining beacon of entertainment that I remember from my childhood. I love Battlestar Galactica, as you mentioned, Ro. That was the original Battlestar Galactica was one of my faves back in the day. But Star Wars was that thing that sort of you remember something that really hit you and affected you strongly in your childhood, and it's one of those things that always stays with you. And Star Wars was that for me. I remember in the small country town that I grew up in called Albury, New South Wales. It's on the border between New South Wales and Victoria. If you ever want to go and look it up, it's only a little spot in the highway, but it had one big cinema, and the sound system in that cinema was pretty full on. You could hear what was happening if it was a loud movie, you could hear what was happening outside the cinema. You could hear the music and the sound effects and stuff because it wasn't very well insulated. But two movies that really stick in my mind when going past the cinema, I always knew they were on, was Star Wars and Aliens. Because they were both very loud movies and you could recognize the sounds immediately. It was those sounds that just, you always knew. Dun, 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 dun. That's Star Wars. Yeah, I know what that is.
Exactly, yeah.
And of course, that of the alien, you could always recognize that when you went past and you heard that. It was like, that's an alien. Yeah, I know what that is. And the sound of the pulse rifles was one that always stuck in my head as well. But Star Wars was that movie that amazed me. Like I remember the first time I went and saw it. The old red velvet cinema seats, and the sort of the big not it wasn't a modern cinema. It was an old cinema. Like it used to have live shows in there as well, and They actually only used the top section as a cinema, and they only opened the bottom section and was live shows on. But the red velvet seats and the big sweep down to the edge of the balcony, and then the screen down there with all the carvings and everything around it, and the opening, the curtains opening, and that dun, 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 and the trumpets and everything, and then the and it just sends a cold shiver through my spine every time I hear that first trumpet blaring opening of Star Wars music. Thank you to John Williams for so many fantastic movie soundtracks. But Star Wars, man, you just killed it. It was so good. And just from that very first opening and the very first bit of music and the text crawl, and watching the Tantive 4 being chased down by Star Destroyer over Tatooine, it's so iconic, and it's something that sticks in my head. And as I was saying to Ro before the podcast started, I've seen Star Wars 40, 50 times, which doesn't sound like that much, but I had an album, like actual vinyl album of the story of Star Wars, which was an edited down version of the story with sections of audio from the movie. And I must have listened to that 10,000 times. In fact, when I was in 6th class and we had to come up with stalls for the Fate, I actually had a tape recording that I made from the album, and I played it as a stall, and kids would come in and listen to bits of it and then go out again. They paid like 10 cents or something to come in and listen to a bit of Star Wars. And that's what it meant to me, that, you know, I wanted to share it even back then in any form that I could, because once it was out of cinemas, there was no, even VCRs weren't a thing in 78, and there was no way to do anything with it except for a recording of the cut down audio. But it was, I had books, I had technical readouts, I had figures, I had Legos, I had models, I built an X-Wing, I built Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. I had about 40 of the little figures that, you know, yay high. And used to do my own little Star Wars games with those. And I actually had a Star Wars electronic battle grid game, which was a white plastic thing about nearly a foot wide, 30 centimeters odd, and it wasn't like it wasn't even LCD screen. It just had little red LED lights, and you used to press buttons on the front of it, and you used to chase ships around and try and catch them and kill them. And you know, all of that stuff, you know, all the Star Wars stuff, I had as much as I could get my hands on. So I was like, it was a turning point for me. That Star Wars pretty much made me look at sci-fi in a very different way. And admittedly, you know, I was 8 when Star Wars came to cinemas. You know, I wasn't old enough to really appreciate the earlier sci-fi, which was, I would say, the difference between Star Wars and early sci-fi was that early sci-fi was much more cerebral, and Star Wars was kind of like taking science fiction and then smushing like a swashbuckling adventure into it, and turning it into science fantasy, which isn't to say that it was any less entertaining than sort of the cerebral science fiction, but it was different and it was more accessible, and it brought science fiction to the masses in a form of science fantasy. And obviously, you know, they weren't sure it was going to work, but it worked so well that we're still getting series to this day and movies and things like that. And it's a story that you know, sticking with us. It's you know, been a story for generations now. So that's how important it's become for the people who like science fiction as a key concept within the science fiction milieu.
I still believe strongly, and that's just my perspective. And Ray, you probably heard me say this before. Don't know if you guys would agree with this, but I still say that Star Wars saved sci-fi.
I think Star
Because-
Wars saved more than sci-fi. Star Wars saved the cinema experience.
Mhm.
You talked about John Williams. I mean, Star Wars, at the time was a perfect storm, and every Hollywood studio has been trying to emulate that perfect storm since 1977.
Mhm. Yes,
It's amazing.
and it's really amazing that if you can coin an iconic movie from every perspective, Star Wars 1977 would be at the top of that list.
Absolutely.
And I think and this we have talked about this right before, the importance of um you know um sci-fi, right? So it, at that point, we I think we talked with Madison about this and how important it is to kind of follow sci-fi properties when they come in. Obviously stuff like Star Wars makes it a lot easier because it's a lot more entertaining. But prior to Star Wars, we were going into and there was an issue. Like we talked, if you listen to our Logan's Run episode, you realize that movie almost never got made if it wasn't for other movies. And obviously you could see that was the beginning on the studios to say, okay, sci-fi is not profitable for us. We should move in another direction. And where would we be without sci-fi today? And that's one of the points what I said, like how Star Wars saved sci-fi, because after that we have a lot of studios say, okay, hold on a second, sci-fi is actually profitable. And we had a resurgence of stories. Granted, sci-fi changed, but the important thing is sci-fi got saved. And we talked about this where there has been let me bring one up that is kind of like a sore subject. Cowboy Bebop, for example. We are lovers of the original content, the anime. We love the new remake, but it seems like I am in the minority when when it is to love that new Netflix original that came up. And why am I bringing this up is there's going to be a lot of IPs that might disappear because of this.
I have a comment. I have a comment about that before you move on, because that's the fine line that directors and filmmaking uh, creators have to always look out for, is when they are willing to sacrifice the how do you call it, uh, squeezing too much of a story to make it more commercial for the authenticity of their story.
Yes.
And that's when they become sleeper movies.
Yes.
you know and that's what happens also when you do way too many of parts or sequels or prequels, that it becomes boring. It's like when they make a movie and then they make a TV show out of that, but the movie wasn't really good enough for you to make a TV show out of that.
Yes.
Or when it happens the other way around, like there's movies that have way too many sequels that I wish they would have done actually a TV show on. So that way they could have put more spread out all the details that they actually try to squeeze in into a movie or into a 5 or 6 sequel that really didn't capture it.
Exactly. And we could see this. It also could happen within an IP. I'm just bringing that up as an example. But like, how many times have I heard how people did not like the Boba Fett show?
Yeah.
I loved it. But there's a lot of people out there. I don't know what your opinion is on this, Ro, but I love Boba Fett.
Well, we did live shows. We have our show on YouTube live on Saturdays at 7 p.m. called Scarif Live, and we did a complete review of every episode. Yeah, it's not my favorite. I think I think Andor is a top for me,
Oh yes.
and then Mandalorian, and then there's a couple of empty spots, and then Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. Yeah. Another example we have is Halo.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So the fear that I have is, if as and I guess this is just my personal opinion, and I don't know, Ray, if you can share this. I love all sci-fi, and for me, the multiple IPs are very important. So I would hate for an IP to become sleeper, and then people will not enjoy the joy that I feel on that story. And that's what's slightly happening when some of the IPs. I honestly, I don't know if you have an opinion on what happened. For example, I come back to Cowboy Bebop. I don't mean to do it
Honestly,
on
I'm
purpose, but
surprised that most people didn't like it. I loved it. I loved it, and I think it was a bold move. The cast
Mhm.
and the plot, because they didn't stick to exactly scene by scene what happened on the anime.
Exactly.
They try to sway it away, but stay in the same storyline, but give you more background story of some of the characters that they didn't give you that much on the whole show. You know,
So the comment, and I don't know if I'm wrong in this. What my perception has been is that most of the comments that I heard on that show happened prior to the show airing. So what happens when people would read those reviews? They're like already expecting the show is going to suck.
yeah, they're creating a prejudice, a predisposition.
Exactly.
So yeah,
And then we have other issues, like, for example, what happened to John Carter,
yeah.
where it wasn't really
Great idea, great resources, not such good
marketing.
marketing, and honestly, like the execution, like they couldn't even done better because they show us what they were capable of when we saw that movie. It's
Mhm.
like this could have been even better would they stick to the actual canon of the books instead of trying to mesh up three books into one.
Well, I did love the movie, and
Oh, I loved it too.
I feel still to this day that the issue was marketing, because
It wasn't just marketing. The director was making things difficult as well.
But wouldn't you agree? Like we're swaying away from actual Star Wars, but like,
we got to come back.
wouldn't you agree that basically
Bring
like
it back.
if they would have stayed canon to each book, because what they do they mash up like timelines and books together into one movie. If they would have done that, maybe it would have been more successful.
Maybe.
And Star Wars seems to be actually coming back to it very loyal to that. They are very strict and disciplined on staying truth to the story written
Yes.
on the movies. They don't try to move away from that. Not even in the animated series, nothing. It's always like into the storyline, how it's written and how it's given on other medias.
Ro, do you feel that this is true to a fault? Because, and let me explain this, and you probably might hate me for this, but I I love off canon stories for Star Wars. To me,
Fan fiction.
and this is what I have encountered, or many people that have talked to, is that most of the stories that you read that are like either books or comic books or whatever, they're not considered canon. Although I love those stories, and for me, it's all within canon, in my personal opinion. So maybe that formula is working because we have so many amazing Star Wars stories being created right now,
Hmm.
and they're all following that. Now, Ray, what do you think about that? I mean, how do you feel about the non-canon? I don't know if you ever read, if you read different books on Star Wars, or if you just kept it to the.
I mean, come on, the guy just told you that he used to listen to the vinyls,
No, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about. I'm sorry, Ro.
bro.
Yeah. Are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about the material that is now called Legends or Expanded Universe
I can give you an
material.
example. One example out of many could be Mara Jade,
Right.
and I love Mara Jade,
And
and
you
Sure.
show me something like a bootleg episode that somebody did like a fan thing
oh yes,
about her.
defense, yeah.
Yeah, you showed me that. I heard of it before. Even Boba Fett.
I
I never
love
heard it before
Mara
you showed it
Jade.
to me.
I love Mara Jade, and I was really sad because I remember when the new Star Wars coming, like, which many people hate. You know, the one with Ray and Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Right? I'll go on record and saying anything Star Wars I own and I love it. And I was so excited when those movies came out because I was hoping that maybe Ray is the daughter of Mira Jade.
They
No,
haven't
I'm
even
not.
touched that. You're right by.
Yeah.
Oh, don't you start.
He said that he's not because you say Ray.
Man.
He's the daughter. And I said he's right by.
But you know what I'm talking about. That's just one story that
Sure.
to me is canon, but not to everybody else.
To me, I don't think that not many people know about Mary J.
Oh yeah, tons of. I mean, Star Wars fans know about Mary.
OG fans, I would call it the OG fans, the true inner circle of Star Wars. I would give it to them. But people that haven't even watched all of the movies,
Probably not.
much
Yeah,
less even
probably not.
chronologically, like I don't think that they know who Mary J is.
You know, there's a group of fans, obviously, that have been upset at Disney for decanonizing the old stories. Obviously, I think, George Lucas had sanctioned the creation of these stories as kind of an offshoot of his universe. Obviously, it was like a marketing thing. Let's make some money. Let's license these new stories, et cetera, et cetera.
Always the
But
money.
right. But it's not, they weren't considered, part of the canon or part of the timeline of the Skywalker saga that he was telling. And if you read some of the books, some of the stories are like all over the place. There's there's some stories where some of the characters die. I mean, Chewbacca dies, he gets hit by a moon and dies.
Damn.
But it's
Sure
it wasn't a space station?
Hey.
Yeah, that's no moon.
They could be more dramatic.
That is
Indiana Jones met Han Solo.
Right. It was the supposedly the Indiana Jones movies are Han Solo's dreams while he was frozen in carbonite. But that you bring up a very interesting question, and it's a question that I really have not thought of. And I know my co-host Brad has opinions on the fact that you can read or experience any Star Wars, and if it's canon to you, it's canon to you. It's your own personal opinion.
Yes.
Like religion and politics, just it's something that if you like it, that's great. You can think that it was part of the main story, and that's fine. It's not going to affect anything either way. But it's always an interesting question, and I find it interesting, and I find I love hearing other people's take on what is canon, because it's all kind of timey-wimey stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I'm kind of keen for Thrawn to show up in the Ahsoka series.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I want to see some Thrawn.
And that's the good thing about Dave Filoni. I mean, he understands that there are certain story elements in the past from that material that he's been pulling from for the last couple of years. And Thrawn obviously is one of them. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
I was looking in my mind for a word because there's a specific word for that thin line, and it's director's integrity. And basically, it's when the director is not willing to sacrifice the originality of a story to sway from the main canon just to make it more money.
I honestly think, based on what to add to what you said, what actually is helping Star Wars today is the fact that we have fans creating. They're in a position of creating Star Wars.
Yeah.
And not only they're not only fans,
and you got new fans that are being born and becoming fans as they grow old and watch this because it is sleepers. They're timeless movies. They don't suffer the ravage of time. Like it could be 50 years from now, they're still good classic and great storytelling.
I still feel Dave Filoni does a really good job at this. He's a fan and he listens to fans.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, really important.
That's the key.
In the IP, and I think strongly. And I don't know what you take is in this, but I feel that this is the reason why Star Wars is booming the way that it is booming right now.
And he was George Lucas's protege when they were working on Clone Wars together. George Lucas trained him, and he was George's Padawan.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. I gotta bring a topic that me and Gio.
Oh, wait. Before you move on, because I wanted to mention this too.
Okay.
Because you were asking Ro about the stories that go away from the canon. And I think that when they stay on the canon, the effect is people that love these stories get to see a little bit more of that universe that they stay with the hunger of, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what makes them so successful versus something that drives away from the actual original story. It's like when you love something so much that you keep on going back to watch it, you wish there would be more of it, but you want it to be real. So since it's sci-fi or fantasy, you want it to stay on the storyline so you can connect the dots to what you have watched already. And that's the feeling that you get when stories actually stay canon. That's why
Mhm.
they are so successful versus something that it could be fan fiction or detour from canon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna say-
I mean. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say on that point, what you were saying before, Gio, about directorial.
Director integrity.
Integrity.
Yes, integrity. It's not just the directors that need to have integrity, it's the producers and
Yeah.
the studio.
Yes.
Because
True.
at any level, if you get interference to the point where they're forcing you to reduce the amount of time that you need to tell the story, so you're squishing things down and making things run too fast or cutting out scenes that make more sense, then I feel like it just destroys the narrative.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, with the troubles that the sequel trilogy had with
Sequel trilogy.
yeah, that one, yeah, that it had with producer interference and, you know, forcing messaging into there that wasn't a focus of the story, basically breaking the story focus on other things and just having it make no sense in places was just, it just destroys the viewer's faith in the story.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you really lose a lot of people. The reason why a movie stays a classic is because the story speaks to the ongoing themes of life, be it the hero's journey, the person who
Redemption.
fell to darkness, who repents, you know, all of these classic story elements that everybody just picks up and understands at a almost subconscious level as they grow up listening to stories. That if you use these things and you're telling a story that's timeless, even if you're telling it in a futuristic manner, it will still last the test of time because it is a story that is passed on through generations and everybody will get the deeper meanings of it. But when you're just trying to push a narrative for something that's a trend at the time, trends come and go. Once the trend is gone, it just loses its meaning and is nothing. And that's why those movies are forgotten.
And I mean, you mentioned before, like our way of making concepts of reality and make meaning out of it is a system of comparison, you know. And when we're watching a movie, that's what we relate to. Is when we see those archetypes that relate to our own experiences, and you can see throughout all the Star Wars or any movie or element that you're watching, there's something that anybody can relate to at some given point. All characters are that variation, you know. And so, oh man, I went through that kind of dilemma on my life, and like things like little things like this that are, like you said, subconscious is what capture the audience to make love the elements so much, the property.
Well, the thing about Star Wars is that it was using classical story elements, but presenting them in an entirely new and exciting fashion.
And
And
it has a
that's
lot of
why it
psychological
captured
and
the hearts
political
of so
dilemmas,
many people.
right? There's a lot of psychological and political dilemmas in there that are well put into.
Even religious.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these are things that as kids, when we were 7, 8 years old, we didn't catch them. But as adults, we're like, oh wow, yeah, I didn't catch. And again, that's the staying power of these classic stories. As kids, we like the visuals, we like the lightsabers, we like the spaceships. It's fun, the creatures, the Wookiees, all that stuff. It's really visually cool, and that's what gets you in. And as you grow older, your mind changes and your interpretation of these topics change as well. And that's that's a testament to the staying power of not ours, but just classic stories in general.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna bring, and this is something that I was gonna bring earlier. I'm gonna bring a topic that I found interesting about this movie, and what I said about this movie is basically this is where it begins, where this particular thing begins. Me and Gio were actually briefly talking. Well, not really briefly, like we normally pause the movie and make it longer than it should be. We were actually talking about this, and
I
it's
mean, yesterday we couldn't finish the movie. We were
yeah.
talking so much.
So yeah, we should have saved it for the podcast. But it's the relationship between Leia and
Luke Skywalker.
and Luke Skywalker. Now,
Incest.
and exactly,
Not yet. Not yet.
I hear comments like that. I hear how like, Luke is introducing, like how can you make this, he being in love with his own sister, and and I had a really good conversation with Gio yesterday. Hopefully, you can help me because I still find it very difficult to
Oh, I saved a
to
conversation in
to
my head.
to illustrate. And my point of view is something completely different to that. And I don't know if you guys would agree with, but where based my comment is they had a a a typical brother and sister relationship, but it was covered up by Luke's experiences up to that point.
Mhm.
And how we had talked in the past, how you today are you because of the results of your surroundings and your experiences as you came through life up to this point. And tomorrow you will be a different person than you are today. And I strongly believe this. So where I'm saying this is because the experiences that Luke had up to that point were very sheltered because of Uncle Ben trying, the fear that he had of him becoming like his father. He's, in part, I strongly believe that's the reason why every time he brought the point that he wants to go to the academy, he always finds
It was this escapism to get out of that scene, really.
exactly, and he finds a way
Want to leave.
to keep Luke in
Mhm.
because he doesn't want, so
You can tell when he's talking to his uncle and aunt on the table, they're holding him back. They're
exactly.
like, oh, another 6 months, another year. So it's like, come on, this dude is like, he's too old almost to get in already. You know?
So,
Uncle Ben held a lot of fears, including painting the ceiling in the kitchen.
No, like I was telling Robert yesterday in the movie, like, okay, this dude is supposed to save the galaxy, and his uncle is telling him he has to worry about fixing 2 droids.
So what I'm saying is, this is not expressed in this movie, obviously, but based on that, you could make an assumption that his social life was the same way.
Yeah.
So he was limited to his relationships, his friends, possibly a very limited experience with the other sex. So he doesn't have that experience that the average kid, say in Tatooine, would have
Mhm.
with being interacting with a lot of kids his age. And this again, this is just an assumption based on how strict Uncle Owen was with Luke, and because of the fear, which is understandable, right?
Sure.
So because of this, he doesn't have that thing that and I don't even know how you call it when you go to school and you can make it number one, he's an only kid.
The
So he
sense
does-
of connection with other friends, other people, the sense of connection, I would say.
exactly. I mean, he
Yeah.
had Briggs, but that's one that we can say from the movie. But
Right.
you
And there's
Sure.
there was a deleted scene where he actually goes to Tashi Station and hangs out with his friends. There's
Mhm.
there's a
It's in the
female
Star Wars
character.
radio play.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh
That
yeah,
scene.
yeah. So there, and Uncle Ben does um Uncle Ben, Uncle Owen does. I'm thinking Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Yeah. Uncle
Well, he
Owen
gets
does.
killed. Uncle
Yeah,
Ben,
Uncle
gets
Ben,
killed
yeah, right.
too. He gets killed too.
And there is a reference to Luke Skywalker going and time with his friends, et cetera, et cetera. So that we can make the assumption that although he was sheltered, there is some limited connection between
Yes,
him and friends. We don't. I don't think that we feel that he was completely sheltered because
correct.
he did have some sort of relationship with his friends at the time.
Hmm.
I mean,
You can waste
Cammy,
time with your friends
Cammy
when
was
your chores are done.
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
So where I'm going with this is, uh, there he's a Jedi. He doesn't know it yet, right? And the reason why I say he's a Jedi, obviously he hasn't gone through the trials, he haven't gone through training or whatever.
He's kind of a prodigy, really.
But
He's
he-
force sensitive.
exactly.
Is the term I
He
think you're looking
has
for.
he has the biggest concentration of midichlorians because of his father. And I think, I tell myself this. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but however, where I'm trying to get with this is the fact that he didn't have a sibling. Now he sees this person typically, in my experience, and I have two brothers. Blood calls you. So he sees this person, and I don't know if I'm even expressing it right. We had the conversation yesterday, so maybe you can help me in some of the points because I still find it hard to express. But he sees this person, he feels a connection because that's what we feel when we say, "Oh, we like this person." There's a connection there, right? So he feels a connection because they're brother and sister. He doesn't know it, obviously. And on top of that, he's not the average person. He's force sensitive. So I strongly feel that there's a bigger connection than that when he's looking at Leia for the first time. When she said, "Oh, she's beautiful," and then all throughout the movie, how he's jealous of Luke. I mean, of Han when he's mentioning, he's like, either either I hate her, or I'm beginning to love her, stuff like that. So my thought is, he's confused. And what do I don't know if you remember the conversation we have, and that's what appears to the audience when you watch this. And obviously, this is obviously something that I realized after watching this, grown, older, because we never caught this when we were kids watching this movie. But and I guess I'll ask your opinion on that. He's because he have no way of comparing this because his experiences are limited. I'm not saying there's no experience. I'm saying his experiences are limited. He doesn't really quite know what's going on because he feels something because of the force.
So he doesn't know what he's feeling even.
So he's confused that what he's feeling is not the love of someone he likes, but it's the love of family.
Yeah.
It's the love of a sister.
I think.
Come on. Luke was a raging siscon. You know that.
Oh my god! I think that it's what I told you. He didn't know what he
Raging
felt,
hormones.
Yeah, that's like
Look,
the difference.
I'm sure he felt very comfortable around her because they are of the same blood and they have the same sort of force sensitivity and that sort of thing. So he would have felt very comfortable around Leia, and she was beautiful. So that's
yes.
I mean, come on. You look at her, how she was dressed. Who wouldn't feel comfortable around her?
And
feel
they're
way too
twins, but
comfortable.
they're non-identical twins. So there's not that looking at yourself in the mirror thing.
Yeah.
So it's not a dead giveaway.
And there has been studies where twins experience some sort of connection.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, we have the normal interaction of brother and sister that he doesn't know about. We know the science behind, twins, their connection, which he doesn't know about, and the force sensitivity of both, which he doesn't know about. So that's where I'm basing my point. And I guess I'll start with Gio and see what his thoughts is, and then we can move on to you guys and see what your thoughts and what I just said.
And I mean, what I was mentioning yesterday in a conversation is like, there's three things that could have been confused. He have known, but he doesn't. So he doesn't know if that was infatuation. He doesn't know if that was actually sexual attraction, or if it was family love, because he hasn't experienced any of these. And I'm assuming
We
like
think.
he hasn't. I mean, they haven't expanded on this, but I don't think that in his past he had a girlfriend or something, much less a human, because it doesn't seem that there's many humans in there too. You know, so he's seeing somebody that is his race and the opposite sex. And on top of that, I mean, is a beautiful woman, you know.
Mhm.
So he
And
doesn't
she's a
really know.
princess.
And
it's
a princess,
Yeah,
yes.
and I mean, she's definitely distressed. She's asking for help.
Yes.
So basically, he cannot help but want to help first of all, and feel like a chivalry knight, you know. And on top of that, I mean, Obi-Wan was a dirty bastard because he actually hooked him up with that, like, you gotta go and save her now, dude. Instead of telling
Yeah,
him, no,
didn't
that's your
say
sister.
you gotta go and say that she's your sister. Could have
No,
said that.
he didn't say she's a sister. So, like, basically, when they get there, he's like, why didn't you tell me that was my sister?
Oh wow. So
But you know, like,
When you
and I
came in
mean,
here, didn't you have a plan for getting us out? He's the brain, sweetheart. Well, I didn't know.
and later we know she's no damsel.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. Yeah.
Get this walking carpet out of my way.
But those are my thoughts on it. You know, like, I think that all of that combined with a beautiful girl, and to top it off, the main fantasy of many Star Wars fans.
Yes.
You
Yes.
came in that thing? You're braver than I thought.
Where's your that's what she said sticker?
Yeah, what's up with
Sign.
that?
You came in her. We came in that thing.
So I guess we're gonna move on to the guest and see what his thoughts are on that. And the reason why I wanted to bring it up is I hear this conversation almost every time, and this is kind of like my first time expressing what my thoughts are on that situation.
And honestly, just to close it off, like, people like to be morbid and judge, but they are morbid and judge, and they're morbid on the closet. I am all out. And I think that there's no shame or understanding, because we're humans at the end of the day, that a family member that is of opposite sex or the same sex, that you could admit he's handsome, he's a beautiful person, he
Mhm.
looks great, you know. There's no there's no morbid thought about saying that. It all comes out what you mean by saying it, you know. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, he thinking that his sister is beautiful has nothing wrong to it. You know, she is actually beautiful. What's the problem? You know?
And the kiss, you know.
Yeah.
So
And that wasn't in this movie, so there's no talking about it.
oh, spoilers! I'm sorry.
That's some mamas and the papa stuff right there.
That's season 3.
Okay, so go ahead, Ro. Let me hear what
Or
your
season
thought is.
5, depending on where you decide to start.
Right. Exactly. That's kind of interesting. I think, as with any muscle that is not used, you don't notice it. It becomes obsolete. I think, yes, he was kind of strong in that's what she said. Yeah. Use my muscle that
Poor
way.
Darth Vader. He doesn't have 3 other limbs.
But as far as Luke Skywalker being force sensitive, and obviously there is sort of kind of a sixth sense of feeling a certain way.
Increasing.
There you go.
I mentioned that yesterday.
Yeah, and I think I'm not sure about. He might have been feeling some sort of sisterly pull to the force, as far as the family. I do feel that he just thought Leia was kind of hot, sister or no sister. I think I don't think that Luke was, at this point, he was really thinking about that. Obviously there's an attraction. Later on, in the series, we learn when he finds out, his demeanor obviously changes. It They don't make a big deal about it, but it's I don't think I might think I'll say this. I think maybe we are reading too much into that, especially during this first movie. I think it's just presented as he's attracted to her.
Mhm.
No biggie.
No biggie. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah.
Cool. Ray, what is your thought on what I just said? And you know me more than most. I overthink things. That's just me.
Yeah, fair enough too. I mean, look, I'm probably not the person to ask because I've watched too much anime recently, and every second anime has a siscon or a brocon.
I don't know if Ro knows about anime,
really-
but this is a normal thing on anime. So
Yeah, animes like to touch all taboos and just throw it all out there.
yeah, all in your face.
Oh yeah. There's also on YouTube. There's a lot of manga panels that have been translated and voiced, and there's a lot of this. Oh, I was in love with this girl and then found out she was my sister and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, if you're attracted to somebody, but you know, like, if you remember back to your teenage years, and I know for some of us it was quite a while back now, so it's kind of hard, but if you remember back to the start of discovering and understanding feelings and how you felt about other people, whichever sex you happen to be in, whichever sex you happen to be interested in, it's confusing, it's complicated, you haven't always got it worked out, and it
Doesn't come with a manual.
Yeah.
There's no manual. I mean, sure, there's manuals for how to do the deed, but there's no manuals for feelings.
Insert key
There's no
in the hole.
manuals for
What deed are you talking about, man?
Insert key in the hole.
that deed. That deed. That's right.
There's a generational barrier too, because before it's insert key, now it's just push start.
True enough.
Oh my
true enough.
God, I love where the conversations go.
Yeah, feelings are complicated and they're not clear. And if you had parents like mine, you got told exactly nothing and had to work it all out for yourself, and you got it wrong a lot of the time.
Yeah, he loves technology and he comes from Amish.
And I mean, you got to work all these things out, and everybody has their own feelings about these sort of things and their own kinks and all those sorts of stuff. But as far as, you know, he did not have the knowledge that she was his sister. Mm-hmm. He had no reason to think, oh, like socially that's a bad thing or genetically that's a bad thing, because he did not know that they were related. So if you see a pretty girl, why wouldn't you think, well, I wouldn't mind a bit of that? And then you go, oh, she's your sister. You go, oh, okay, well, I'll just wander off over here.
I'll just play over here, yeah.
Unless you are a brocon or a ciscon, and then it doesn't really make any difference. But you know, we're attracted to who we're attracted to, and it's usually social mores that say, well, you can do that or you can't do that. And if you don't know that those social mores are in play, then you're just either attracted or you're not. So I don't feel that Luke or Leia did anything wrong. And when they found out, they went, well, that's not going to happen. And she went with Han. And, you know, I don't see a problem. You can only work with the information you have at the time. You can't be expected to magically know something.
It's not about her being with her brother. It's about she chose actually the pompous douchebag. We cannot deny that. Han Solo was that. He redeemed himself and proved himself to be actually a person of good morale, but like he was just a douchebag at the beginning.
Well, we all agree. You and me agree on who I feel is the worst person here.
The worst person.
Lando.
What? Hey, I'm your guest. What are you talking about?
No, it's kind of like inside joke because you know, throughout the conversation me and Gio had, we were watching this movie, I kept on referring to whiny ass bitch all the time, and it's like, oh boy, you feel you have strong feelings about Vader. Oh God,
the choker. He's like the kinkiest guy in the whole Star Wars saga. Just want to be choking everybody.
Right? Yeah.
Oh my God. And you know, that's why we love Captain Chaos.
Dressed in black just like a dom, huh?
I'll show you my dorms because I'm not your daddy.
So I want to ask this question. Is there a particular scene or concept on this particular movie that you find fascinating, that you always have conversations about on this on A New Hope, the movie? And this is posted for everyone.
You know, I think the main shot that everyone really can relate to in this particular film, and as a young person, really relate to the growth that you are starting with in your life as a young person, is the shot of Luke Skywalker somewhere in the middle of the film, towards the beginning, the first half, when he goes out and sees the twin suns on the horizon on his planet of Tatooine. the music that plays, the I guess the representation of him looking to the future, or I guess the mystery of what the future is for this particular character kind of applies to us all,
Yes.
especially at that age. We are looking to the horizon. What are we going to find inside ourselves? How will we grow, and how will we relate to other people and other characters in our stories? And I think for me, that was very, very well played in that scene where Luke just looks out. There's a moment of peace that George Lucas decided, consciously, I'm going to shoot this scene. It's gonna be a couple of seconds, but it's going to mean so much in this particular section of the story that we're talking about. I think it was a brilliant move, and I would pick that one.
That
Awesome.
particular scene was a scene of longing. He's longing for something more because of all the arguments he's had with his aunt and uncle and all his friends
Sure.
going away, and he's stuck there. He's longing for something more, especially the conversations that he's had with R2D2 and C3PO and finding out that they were part of the rebellion. And he's like longing for something more, and it's a case of be careful what you wish for.
You might
Because
just get it.
inside of a day, he's lost his aunt and uncle, and he's being pursued by the Empire. It's like,
Yes.
oops.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with Ro. I really like that representation.
The most fucked up part is he didn't know that he was being followed by the Republic until he was in the ship moving. It's what I'm telling you. Obi-Wan was very, very tricky to keep some information for himself until it was too late to do something about it.
And you bring this point, and I find that really fascinating. Obviously, we don't know what part of the story George Lucas had at that point.
Mhm.
Some people argue that he had all the 6 movies. Some people argue that he just had the 3, and it's like a work in progress. But I find really fascinating, especially the scene when he's having a conversation with Obi-Wan, and he's talking about his dad, and how he's looking at him, and you could see that he's hiding things
Mhm.
as he's telling I knew your father, or
I knew your father.
your father was with me, or Darth Vader killed your father.
Your father was a pussy.
Also the scene when
I hate Sam.
also the scene when he's having the conversation earlier in the movie with Uncle Owen and Baru about you know him trying to get out, and she the way that they look at each other, the way they
Oh
look
yeah, I
at him,
love that.
because
Like in
at that-
retrospect, you look at that and I'm like, George had to have known.
Yes.
But there is a certain look, especially at that dinner table, when Baru looks up at Owen. They look at each other and like,
Yes.
we gotta interrupt this somehow. I don't know if it was designed specifically because George knew, but it's a brilliant point in coincidence that should not be forgotten. It just worked out so well. And there's a couple of other places, like you mentioned, Obi-Wan Kenobi telling Luke about his father, from a certain point of view, whatever. But it's kind of like, now that we know the full story, it's kind of brilliant.
Yes. And this is where I'm going with this. And let me pick, because I know I mentioned a bunch of different, which they all apply. But let's concentrate on one just so I can make a point. The conversation that he's having when he's talking about his dad, and, oh, yeah, a young pupil of mine named Vader killed your dad. Or at the time, right, I might not have really overthink like I normally do this scene, but there's always that question, because why are they looking like that? But as kids, you put it behind and you move on. And then later in life, watching it with fresh perspective, because this is one of those movies that I watch. I couldn't tell you how many times. And then as older, you watch this movie again and you look at that scene again and you're like, hold on a second, there's a secret here. And then kind of like the same thing that happened to me when he's talking about the Clone Wars and me wanting to see the Clone Wars. So it's kind of like the same thing. I'm looking at this scene and there's a secret. What is it that they're not telling us? Right? Fast forward to Kenobi.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene, and you know, if you are in this podcast, you know it's full spoilers. So get ready.
You don't say.
There's a scene where, and let me ask, Ro, have you seen Kenobi, the entire thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure
good.
did.
Ray, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, Ray, you can start. La.
La 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 la. Okay, so there's a scene where Kenobi breaks the helmet. You know, kind of like similar to what happened on the fight when they had when Vader had with
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, right? And he's looking at Kenobi with his own eyes, not through the visor. Usually, whenever that happens, there's a small connection where Anakin is actually talking, right? Granted, it's he's full Vader, he's full of hate still, but there's a slimmer. You could see there's something of Anakin, and there's a phrase that he said that it kind of broke me. If you think about it, then again, for all of you who listen to my podcast, you know that I break easy. Where he says, you know, and again, he said it in a vindictive way, where he says, you know, and I'm going to paraphrase here. It wasn't your fault. Vader killed Anakin,
Yeah.
not you. And that was like, oh my god, it would come full cycle. We can see now
Closure.
what was being hidden from this movie when Owen was, you know, was telling. I mean, not Owen. When Obi-Wan was telling him the story about his how Vader killed his father. Because
I was sitting there last night watching A New Hope with my son, and we got up to that scene, and my son's sort of going, "What's he going on about? What's all this stuff with Clone Wars?" I was like, "It's all lies. Don't worry about it."
So you know that's the point. That's the point that I wanted to bring. It is very clever, and I am really glad because you know we could have just ended up with 3 movies.
Yeah. You might as well.
We could have, you know.
Well, they were actually expecting it only to be one. Like Lucas wasn't sure it was going to do any good. In fact, at the end of Star Wars, where Darth Vader's TIE fighter spins out and gets away from the explosion, that was actually put in at the last minute by Lucas, who decided, well, maybe this will do all right, and I need some flexibility to have the sequel happen. So I won't have his TIE fighter destroyed because it was originally supposed to be destroyed and he was
Sequel
supposed to
or
die
saga?
in an explosion. And apparently there were some people on set who were very unimpressed that he survived.
Now, what's the line between sequel or saga? I think that this doesn't have multiple sequels. This is a saga already.
Yeah,
7 movies.
But
Well,
you
it
know,
is now, but back then
yeah,
it was
back then
one
it was,
movie.
yeah. So you know that's the point that I was trying to make is the fact that you know it could have been, especially for me that I'm very inquisitive. It would have been horrible for me to have all those unanswered questions. And I mean I can even take it back all the way to when he's talking about the Clone Wars. And the first time that I went to the theaters and saw the beginning of the Clone Wars, I actually stood up on my seat and started yelling because I was in presence of the beginning of the Clone War. It's something that I have always been wanting to see since I saw this movie. Because he's talking about the Clone Wars and we have no idea what that is.
And then they searched for Jabba the Hutt's child. What's his name? Stinky?
Stinky.
So
yeah, I always question friends of mine, what would it be if we really only got 3 stories, you know, the 3 movies. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the first, you know, Star Wars by itself is a pretty, you know, compact story. It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. And if we got no more Star Wars, that would have been fine. Luckily we got more Star Wars, but you know, like Ray was saying, I mean, George didn't have any idea that. I think there's an old story out there that George Lucas was having lunch near the Grauman's Chinese Theater and saw just a whole bunch of people just running to the theater, and he was curious, and he went out and asked somebody, what's going on, and why are people getting so crazy? And somebody said, "Oh my God, it's this brand new movie. It's out. It's called Star Wars." And he was like, "Oh, interesting." I don't know if that's a true story, if that's one of those wives' tale stories that the internet picks up on. But yeah, I mean, he planned a sequel that wasn't um, that turned into one of those expanded universe books
Hmm.
that we were talking about early on. Because if he
I read
did,
Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
yeah, Splinter of the Mind's Eye was supposed to be part 2 of Star Wars. He was going to make it on a cheap if it didn't make any money, if Star Wars didn't make any money. So that's another one of those, right? But yeah, I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, Star Wars wasn't opened in that many cinemas across the US. It was scaled back because they were concerned it wasn't going to make any money, and it got so popular that there were lines out round the block of
Right.
people waiting to go in and see it because it was on so few screens. And that was the opening weekend, and then they expanded it, and they just couldn't get enough screens because
Yeah.
there wasn't like megaplexes like they have these days.
I think it was
So-
only in 364 screens across the nation.
yeah, that's nothing.
That's nothing. And then it went up to 1,100 screens, and still people were clamming for more.
Yes.
I told Robert the other week the story of my friend whose mother worked at the local cinema. You know, the one I was telling you about.
Oh, yes.
The music as you walked past. It was summer holidays in '77, and his mother, because she worked there, she could get him in for free, and he went to it 57 times in cinema on its
Nice.
original release.
That's what I
Nice.
call it.
That's a really cool segue, because I was going to ask this. I almost forgot. The question is, how old were you when you watched this movie for the first time, and what was your very first impression? I guess I'll start with the youngling here,
Young Padawan.
the Padawan.
I mean, to me, something that rubbed me away. I was gonna mention. Basically, I learned that in society, anything that you're making, what's gonna get you to be noticed and it's gonna sell, is authenticity. And Star Wars is a work of authenticity. It's something that nothing like that has been made before. Even when you look at sci-fi, it's not something that big guys like H.G. Will, Asimov have made. You know, it's one of a kind. It's its own thing, and that's one of the things that I think that sets it apart as a movie, as a set of sagas, and a universe created by great writers and screenplayers. You know,
So
and I mean, it rubbed me away. For me, the first that I watched was not the favorite of everybody, but it was the one that was made to my time. I was born in '89, and I watched The Phantom of Menace.
when was the first time you watched this one?
This one, not too long ago, because you actually put me to watch it for scholar purposes, because I never watched the older ones.
Okay,
I
so
watched from the episode 1 up to 3, and that's it.
so all of you,
Not even a year ago, you put me to watch it.
so all you listeners out there, you if you follow the show from season 1, you know that I actually tied up Geo and forced him Clock Orange style to watch sci-fi, and now he likes sci-fi.
Yep. He's a Star Wars enforcer, guys. He has his badge.
Very good.
Okay, so the first time that I watched, I think I did not watch. I think I watched it. It was 77. It's very fussy for me because I was around 7. All I remember.
You were, Daddy, I want pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, and that's why I still say pew pew pew. So it was very, especially the scene that I remember very clearly that just robbed me, and I think it was due to the fact that when I was 6, I saw Logan's Run, and they had a similar scene. Is all the white background in contrast with the soldiers walking. This is inside the ship at the beginning of the movie.
Carl Sagan was booming on those times, so this is like the stuff that happens while Carl Sagan is talking about very distant places.
So that scene, to me, it was engraved in my young brain, and I was just in awe just looking at this ship that is in space, and is the contrast of the dark in space and the white corridors, and then you have this soldiers in white armor shooting red lasers, and all those contrast in color. I was just really quiet and just in complete awe just watching the scene. So that has been my youngest experience. Obviously, I enjoy the story, but I couldn't remember, like, obviously, 7-year-old. You see a movie, it's a movie. So you can't really follow, but the whole movie, that's just the biggest scene that called my attention. But throughout the entire movie, it was kind of like that. It was very um, shocking to my young eyes. I guess we can move on to you guys. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I saw it in 1977 in a movie theater here in Chicago, and I think I was hooked from the first scene, and the rest is history. Watching that Star Destroyer fly overhead and just keep going as it attacked, the rebel ship, Leia's ship. It was a fascinating experience to me. The world stopped at that point, and I wanted more. I wanted to learn everything I could, and not. It inspired me to read as much as I could about industrial light and magic, and how the model makers made um, all the effects. It's one of the reasons I became, what I picked as a career is one of the reasons that I did it. I love, editing. I love being a camera guy. I love, sound creation. I mean, all the stuff that I learned about these people at ILM, I love doing, and I think that's one of the reasons that, for me, besides obviously the lightsabers and the spaceships and all that stuff, I think the ability for these people to create something out of nothing, just really, really fascinated me. And George Lucas had that philosophy of, he didn't want his spaceships to be shiny and brand new. He wanted it to look like it had been used, in a galaxy far, far away. And I think for me that was a fascinating thing, because it felt real. It felt like I can actually step through that screen and touch, an engine part or something. So it's very fascinating. I just love
Oh,
it.
I totally agree. If you watch like the high quality versions, because I mean, besides watching it on the big screen, having seen it so many times on television, the 4x3 box, not TVs like we have
4x3.
these days.
Yeah.
The quality was so crap. It was 480p. The details were just lost, right? So having watching it on a 65-inch 4K screen, you see so much more detail. Everything just pops out at you.
And you keep seeing detail. You keep seeing,
Yeah.
like for me, every time I see the movie, it's like, oh, I didn't catch that the first
Yes.
89 times I saw it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But the grubbiness of the robots of R2D2 and C3PO, how grubby they are. Especially after they've dragged their asses through the desert for a few days. It's spot on. I mean, it's just
excited scrub pile.
the
That
believability
depressed
of
him
something
to
so.
death in the desert. That's how he died. He died on the
I
desert
think
with sadness.
Yeah, I think it's the believability of something so unbelievable that
Mhm.
really
Yep.
makes it grounded. And I got to say that the shitty late 90s VFX that was crammed into the later versions kind of takes away from that a bit. I really feel like if they did a 60th anniversary edition or something and redid
Like a
that
remake?
CGI with what Weta's making these days for movies like Alita Battle Angel and Avatar 2 and made it look seamless,
Yeah.
then it would hold together a lot better, because that shitty late 90s CGI is just terrible, because you're watching all these creature effects and everything which are look really good, like and then you see the shitty CGI squeezed in there and you just go, why George, why did you do that? so it throws me out of the believability really quickly when I see that stuff. I just want to close my eyes until it's gone away. But I feel like if they redid it with the CGI we have these days and made it seamless, then it would just be spot on. But the late 90s CGI is just
That's a whole nother show for sure, because there's some, I think the special editions, the Empire Strikes Back was probably the one that worked out really well. I loved what they did in Cloud City. They opened up the scenery a lot more. But there's certain things in A New Hope special edition that are like really questionable. Like they put a rock in front of R2-D2 while he was hiding. There's no need for that. It was kind of goofy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I think we have come to the part of the podcast.
I have a short question that uses a yes or no for each of you.
Okay.
Do you think, on a segue to what Ray said, that if they would remake with new cast Star Wars saga with new CGIs or the resources that we have today, it would have been a success, or would have been a total flop?
Don't put that out into the universe, bro.
No,
don't do that, man.
No.
So that's a no.
If you guys
my
are
nostalgia
watching the
filter
YouTube,
won't accept it.
if you watch the YouTube and you see my face,
Okay, hey, that's a no. That's fine.
It's
I guess
an
that was
emphatic
only
no.
one answer.
I survived the remake of Battlestar Galactica because they made it different enough that it was interesting. But just trying to remake Star Wars again, no. Look, I'd be happy for them to redo the CGI, just to make it look more seamless. But I don't want them to change the actors or anything like that.
So it's all about the familiar faces, not about the.
Well, I think we talked about this in previous episodes. How there's a chemistry.
Yeah.
And this has such a perfect chemistry all the way around.
Magic in a bottle.
It is very, very difficult to replicate that.
Yep.
Well,
part of the chemistry, I think, is the fact that they talk over the top of each other like we do. It's natural.
Yes.
And some of the stuff is hard to catch. And they didn't try to make it clearer, and they didn't have people waiting for other people to finish speaking before they started speaking, because it's not natural.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling Robert, like yesterday when we were watching like that standard for falling when you get shot, that you had to go like this and then throw yourself. Like those are the little things of filmmaking that were back then the norm, that has changed today to make it. They try to make it so real and believable that sometimes it goes away and it's like it's not a movie anymore, or it's not what it used to be. The thing that what it used to be now and then. So going back to that, but now you can move on to the question. That was all my question about.
Okay. Okay, so this is a point of the podcast when I ask, what are, and anybody can go in any order, what is your final thought on this movie? And
me. I'll go first.
Okay.
Because I've been going last all the time, so I want to go first this time.
Okay.
So there was some comments made about Rey Skywalker, Palpatine, whatever you want to call her, being the first true female action hero, or strong female character. And I'm like people go, oh, what about Ripley? You can't forget Ripley. She was like back in the 80s.
What about Barbarella?
What about Princess Leia in their own friggin' series? Princess Leia. Come on. She was so strong. She was captured by Darth Vader. She goes up there and goes, Darth Vader, only you would be so bold. The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic mission. And she's like getting stuck into this guy who chokes out people on a whim.
Yes.
She doesn't know that she's his daughter, but she's like full on.
But that doesn't make it any sexy when she's like, come on, daddy, choke me.
But she's strong all the way through.
But
I'm
I
just
agree
going to
with you.
ignore Geo. He's not there just for this.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
ruin my final comments, man.
But I do agree with you, Ray. It's amazing, and sign me up. Sign me up.
I mean, you look at what she does. She gets captured. She doesn't release the information. When they come to rescue her, she goes, "Aren't you a little bit short for a stormtrooper?"
And she lets them blow her planet
she's like,
away.
Yeah.
when you came in here, didn't you have an idea for getting out? It's like it blasts a hole and goes
Yeah.
down the garbage chute.
It's almost like she's going to call them stupid.
That's how much you can
Don't
trust
you have a
Princess
plan,
Leia.
dummies?
You came in that thing. You're braver than I thought. You know,
Man,
come
I
on,
just
she
found a
was
new standard for
awesome.
trust.
She goes in undercover in the third movie, gets captured by the Hutts, and she chokes the guy to death.
Yeah.
Come on. When
Yeah.
she's in a bikini, she chokes him to death with the chain she's chained up with.
I want a Leia show.
Hello.
Look, man, if somebody ever asks you, this is gonna be the new standard for trust. When somebody asks you, "Can I trust you?" You're gonna tell them, "You can trust me so much that the Death Star will take away the planet, and I will still keep their information."
Yeah, that was heavy. That was heavy because that was her home.
Yeah, no, and to make it more painful, they just blow it up just because when
Yes.
she gave some tip of the information, they said, "Okay, we're gonna do it anyways."
Yeah. Okay, Ro, what is your final thought on this movie?
I think we can probably talk for another 2 hours as far as my final thoughts. But I mentioned earlier, lightning in a bottle. I think Star Wars has survived the test of time for many
Yes.
reasons.
Yes.
It's I know a lot of people won't say any movie is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but Star Wars is perfect in many ways because of many things. It had inspired a generation. It is a wonderful mix of folklore and story,
Yes.
character, and it latches on to a type of storytelling that I think, frankly, has been lost. We earlier on we started talking about how Star Wars does kind of stick to a very rudimentary storytelling trope that doesn't happen nowadays. And storytellers nowadays seem to kind of inject certain elements in their storytelling that are kind of time sensitive within the time that we're living. I think Star Wars does a better job of telling a story for all time, and I think that's one of the reasons that it has survived this long. There will never be another Star Wars, and I think we should give props to the staying power of this film, and for many things, like you said, saving science fiction. Although I know a lot of people kind of reclassify Star Wars into the science fantasy realm,
Yes.
but it is the gateway to science fiction, and I think it should be celebrated as such.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree 100%.
Even though I joke around, like being science fantasy, to me, it's science fiction. It's like all genres start out of genre, and then they start subdividing because they try to make it a lot out of
Sure.
it. But
Yeah.
still, it's like metal is metal. Doesn't matter if it's heavy metal core or progressive. It's metal, or hip hop is hip hop. Same thing. Science fiction is science fiction. This is not mana and magic and wizards. This is people in outer space. So I mean, for like we call fantasy things that we don't know, we can not really rationalize about.
Mhm.
But God knows if all this technology exists and far beyond more of that, we just don't know it.
Okay. So that's your final thought. I was kind of curious because you're out of all of us, you're the new, well, not to Star Wars, but to this movie. You're the newer one.
No, I mean to this movie, I think that this movie is like a monument to filmmaking at all, and basically it brings together many generations because you have more than 2 or 3 generations rolling back for now to Star Wars, and it just shows what I think. I mean, in our generations, your generation, people would divide themselves socially because of hierarchies. I'm older, so I hang out with older people, you know. But we've reached a time where we realize that's not true. That just keeps us separate as society. And Star Wars and many big elements like this is what show us like it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl, how you see yourself like. It matters what we like and we have in common, and it brings us together. And Star Wars is that escape, that place that brings like people together, and it doesn't suffer the ravage of time. Like I say, it's
Yes.
a timeless property. It will be just as great in a more 50 years.
Awesome. My final thoughts, and I guess partly because I am last. I most of the things that I wanted to talk about the final thoughts about this movie were already spoken. So I am just going to add that I agree with every point that has been made. This movie is such an iconic movie, and like I said before, in every sense of the way. Um, and the reason why I feel that it cannot be replicated because it was just a perfect, like Ro just said, it's a perfect storm
Hmm.
of everything going right, and it's impossible to replicate. Um, and I feel very grateful, and I'm not sure if many people have heard this prior to listening to this episode, but to me, Star Wars 1977 saved sci-fi, and I am very thankful for that because I could not tell you where I would be without the stories in sci-fi. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Mic drop. Yep.
Okay, so are we ready for the last segment?
We can give it a swing, I suppose.
We're gonna have to change this segment. You need to be in your white robes and just put it on
Oh yes,
every time that the segment comes
Robes.
in.
you
Yeah.
you gotta come like
It's a lab coat.
Doc from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh God.
We're gonna
yes.
get you like a bowl wig that has hair, like white hair just coming out the sides, and you're just gonna put it and put your white robe and start talking about science.
And I would say, in a word from our mad scientist.
And you're gonna have like a whiteboard on the bottom, so you start just
So there you
Okay,
go.
I'm going to sort that out for you right now. Hang on.
too much
One second.
TV, too much TV, I think.
Here you go.
So for all of you who are
Ba-da-da.
not listening, are not watching the YouTube,
Throw that screen share up.
you guys are
There
not,
you go.
you guys are going to miss out.
You need to bring this character, man.
So if you're listening to the podcast, mark your calendar a month from today. Go to YouTube and at this marker, 2 hours and 1 minute, you're going to see our resident mad scientist. And
That's me cosplaying as Doc Emmett Brown.
Well, he has the goggles of Vin Diesel in Riddick.
Doc
Awesome.
Brown had goggles
I
in
love
the car
that.
park at Twin
Love
Pines
that
Mall.
photo. Seen it many times, and I love that photo. Okay, so here goes our next and final segment.
The science in sci-fi.
Take it
So
away.
as you might imagine, being a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, you don't quite have the links to sort of predictive science that you have in shows like 2001: Space Odyssey or Star Trek, which is predicting what might be happening in the future of our planet. This has got nothing to do with Earth. So none of these technologies, like the people who designed these things for the movie weren't thinking, well, how would technology look in our future? No, this is completely out there stuff, lightsabers and blasters and all this sort of thing. However, Brandon Spector on May the 4th last year, it's last year now because it's 2023. Man, these things tick over quickly.
Yeah.
He produced for livescience.com an article, 7 wild Star Wars technology scientists are building right now. Do you want me to share the article, like screen share it?
We could actually. I can just put it on the notes if you put it on chat, and I'll put it on episode notes.
I can do that.
I can share the article too. So
yeah, well, share the article too, but there's a screen share of the article. So there it is there.
Okay.
So it's livescience.com, Star Wars technology IRL with dashes in between. So this Spectre, as I said, on May the 4th last year, and he's talking about technologies that they're working on. Now, this obviously wasn't in the original Star Wars, but he's talking about battle droids, and he mentions Alice, the agile bipedal robot.
Roger.
And
Roger,
the robot
Roger.
dog Spot.
Roger.
I think it's owned by SoftBank, right? Or Boston Dynamics.
Boston Dynamics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Boston
It was
Dynamics,
SoftBank before. I follow them.
Yeah. So he's talking there about these are, well, Spot's been touted as an assistance robot for combat groups, but of course,
That's
anything that you can tack a gun onto and make it do the fighting for you, they will. Drones, or whatever you can find.
Dinosaurs.
Dolphins, dinosaurs, dogs, anything you can think of, you can take a gun or an explosive onto and get it to do the work for you. They will. So we can expect battle droids sometime next week, I think. So laser swords or lightsabers, TM, to use the correct terminology from Star Wars. This one's a little bit tricky in that, made up gems like kyber crystals aren't really a thing, but surely everybody who's into Star Wars has seen the Hacksmith video by now where they created a plasma sword, which was basically, it was a plasma flame that was created in a handle that you could wave around. It wasn't sort of solid light. It was more like a big ass nasty Bunsen burner, but it could cut through solid titanium. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you put your hand in front of it, it's going to have the same result as a lightsaber.
Plasma.
But yeah,
It's got to have a tailpipe. Oh, sorry,
Yes.
wrong franchise.
But basically, you couldn't use it as a sword per se because they weren't solid enough to like hit against each other. There was none of that sort of solid bouncy business. It's just like a big cutting flame kind of thing. And it was more like if you've seen any of the what's the game called, Knights of the Old Republic. So it was more like that. You had to have a backpack or to actually use it. It wasn't self-contained within the handle. So it was sort of like an early lightsaber, if you wanted to call it something like that. But it's interesting that, they're still trying to work that shit out. It's going to be one of the more complicated things. So bionic arms, I mean, it wasn't actually it was in this movie because Darth Vader had 2 bionic arms. But they're doing a lot of work with bionic arms at the moment. I know a lot about that through the Alita fandom with Tilly Lockey, who has 2 bionic arms that were gifted to her at the premiere of Alita Battle Angel. But they're doing a lot of work with bionic arms at the moment and making them more serviceable and more like the real thing. So obviously they are attempting to improve those and make them more cyberpunky.
I saw the ones that you're mentioning. You can actually they have tact, so she can actually sense the touch when she's making pressure on things, which is
tactile
interesting.
sense.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So universal translators they're working on have had a few versions of that kicking around for a while. Obviously not a golden droid that follows you around, but similar sorts of things. Land speeders, high-speed hovercraft. They've been working on this one for quite a while, and they're getting pretty close now. Obviously, going from attempting to create actual anti-gravity to just 2 big-ass fans and using them for downforce to lift the thing up and travel at high speed. But much like the drone craze that's come in the last 10 years where you've now got drones big enough to deliver pizzas and packages from Amazon and those sorts of things, it's not too long before people are riding them around. So
yeah,
you can imagine that a land speed is not that far away.
Right, you have those scooters all over the city already, so it's some of the time.
Yeah. Commercial spaceships, he's starting to stretch things a little bit here. But of course, talking about Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin and hopefully when things get happening with SpaceX, you'll be seeing commercial spaceships kicking around in the next decade. And then talking about warp drive and jumping to hyperspace, talking about the recent work, both theoretical and the small parts of experimental work that in making these in actuality that they're working on at the moment. I haven't looked deeply into this. He's only made one short paragraph about it. You were saying something about that in the pre-show, weren't you, Gio?
About
Warp drive.
Warp
yeah,
drive.
for the you told me that it's called differently on Star Wars.
Hyperdrive. But
Hyperdrive.
Here's the thing. I really find that warp drive technology or research really interesting, because when Alcubierre came out with a theory first, and he did the calculations, the energy needed to create a warp drive or warp bubble, it was equivalent to the energy of the entire universe. And then we have other scientists looking into the formulas and redoing and
You told me they
rethinking.
reduce it to the size of
Well,
Jupiter.
first it was the size of the entire solar system, and I think the last I heard, they were able to shrunk it down to the size of Jupiter,
which is the giant of our system.
Exactly. Now, if you compare Jupiter to the size of the universe, we have made
minimal.
a real good advance, at least in the theoretical physics of the formulas and how to So if we go, my point is, if we continue to that trend, it wouldn't be long before we actually get warp drives.
Now, here's my observation too. I think that there's a big difference when we're doing warped traveling than when we're doing a travel that requires speed instead. Because when you're doing a warp traveling, you're just warping space, so bending space to get there quick. But when you're going fast, that doesn't affect the passing of reality and time all across the board.
But there's a speed limit, and at that speed limit, we cannot travel to the places that we need to travel to.
The limit is the known speed. It's not a limit.
No, it's a limit.
Speed of light.
It's a limit. Nothing can travel faster than light.
Well, that's until something is proven differently, right?
Well,
I had a question. So there's if I'm in a car and I'm traveling at the speed of light and I turn on my headlights, will I see the headlights in front of me?
Supposedly not gonna come out. What I'm thinking is, since you're traveling at the speed of light, the light's gonna come out because the light's going at your speed plus its speed. That's what I'm thinking. Plus, there's some technologies that needs to be taken into account. Like you're gonna be smashed potatoes if you're going at that speed. So like, some kind of like plasma or field that is gonna segregate you from the physics.
And Ray, correct me if I'm wrong here, and this is the reason why I'm saying the speed limit is final. Is because the closer you come to the speed of light, the more mass you required. So if you reach the speed of light, you have to have infinite mass.
Yeah, you just gotta keep on eating pizza, man. Don't stop.
There's a good side to that.
I love the way GS solves all these problems with pizza.
Yeah.
You get pizza.
Awesome. I'm sorry, you were saying someone was saying something. I interrupted.
Pizza? Somebody said pizza?
Okay, so
moving on.
Moving on.
Now I want some pizza.
There you go.
Me too.
It works.
Me too.
I'm late for lunch at this point. So.
Oh, awesome!
Looking good.
You might as well get pizza.
So, I at this point, I really want to thank Ro. It's been a pleasure. I hope did not scare you with all the sidetracking and all. We are off the rails every single time. Thank you so much for coming on our show. This is your first time on our show, and I hope it's just the first of many. Because we have to rectify the problem.
Yeah,
we need to do more Star Wars episodes. So, thank you so much, Ro, for coming to our show, and I hope that you.
I'm gonna change my name for the next one.
That would be really confusing.
You're gonna be Ro.
Does that mean I need to change mine as well?
No, we're gonna call you Ray Pie. Ray Pie.
Oh my God,
Pie.
Ray, he's not gonna let it go. I'm sorry. So again, thank you so much, and if you can tell our listeners one more time where they can find you.
Absolutely. Follow us on Twitter at Scarif Podcast. And again, just wherever you download your other favorite podcasts, we're there. Ask your smart speaker to play the latest Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. and we hope you enjoy it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Nice.
And again, thank you to all of you out there listening, and also to all of you watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So I really, really appreciate not only you coming to listen to us every week, but also engaging with us in the conversations. Join us on Twitter. Let's continue talking about Star Wars. Follow the hashtag This is Sci-Fi and join us on Discord. Let's continue this conversation, and I want to hear from you. What was your experience the very first time that you watched this movie? Again, thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you next week.
Robert, before we go, I've got one last thing to say to Gio. I find your lack of respect disturbing.
So you're gonna go your kinks now and choke me?
That's your kink.
He just wants a slice of
I might
pizza.
like it. I might like it.
Yeah, I need
just want pizza.
So you're gonna choke me and eat pizza. Okay, that's a new kink. How do you never hear that?
And we leave, and this is how we leave you with Captain Chaos. Thank you again, and see you next time.
Don't choke nobody and eat pizza.